of those subsections. And whatever subsection that student is going to be enrolled in will indicate which of the segments or competencies that they get credit for. So in this case, I'll put this student in 1. It takes a second to get it enrolled, but it'll come back here in a sec. Oh, I'm sorry. It's restarted it and moved it down. And then I might do this one in B and then this one in C. And so this identifies that this one is in A, this one's in B, this one's in C. So then when I close this form, scroll down here, you'll see that I have these students. Now I can be happy with that, but you'll notice that there's a few other things that I've got going on here. One of them is a letter grade. At some point, you're going to need to put in the letter grade that the student received for this course. And you can do it manually or in a couple of different ways, or you can do it through an import, and we'll talk about imports in a little bit. But if I wanted to put manually, and I want to do it one at a time, I could come down here and click on edit, and then I could go in and choose which letter grade they want. Through this edit, I can individually update their begin dates and end dates. I can also change their subsection if I wanted to here. And then I click on update. So now this student has this letter grade. I can also update enrolled students by highlighting the ones that I want to highlight. So if I wanted to update all of them, and I can hit update enrolled students, and it'll take all those students that I have highlighted. And if you can see down here, it identifies the ones that I highlighted, and I can change their dates. Or I could add in their high school and college credits, or I could change their subsection. For instance, a lot of times people will inadvertently enroll a block of kids in the wrong subsection. So this is a way to move them from one subsection to another. Or if I just wanted to give everybody A's, I could go in there and give them A's by clicking on that too. Another thing that I can do, and I'll touch a little bit more on later, but is I can enter in work-based learning credits or codes. And this allows me to update work-based learning through enrollments. And I'll come back to this in a minute. But this allows me to update all of these, all the data on those. I can also copy or transfer students. And in this is the case, I might have 2 courses that might be a first semester, second semester, and all the same kids are going to be in the first semester and the second semester. So I'll create the 2 courses, and then I will enroll all the kids in the first course, and then click on copy transfer and identify what the copy transfer is. And then, we seem to have had some kind of a server error. Let's see here. But anyways, I can do the copy transfer. I would choose the course, identify what the dates are if I want them, and then either I can copy them, in which case I would they would be in the first course and the second course, or I could just move them in the second course. And this is something that happens, this might be a good thing to do if I for instance, inadvertently enrolled students in the wrong course. I can grab them and then transfer them instead of removing them and then re-adding them back. So that's something that I can do. So those are the things that I can do. I can enroll them, update students, or copy transfer them. Let's see here. Interesting. Let's see. And so that's our enrollment. So that we can do all that through Manage Enrollments. And as I said, you can do this all manually, which we're doing here. So I can go in and I can just grab blocks of students, pick them out one by one, and enroll them that way. Or I can do it through imports. And the imports allows me to do larger blocks of students. So to try and figure out a little bit more about imports, I can go back to the knowledge base and I can go to imports, and I can say importing, I can look at the importing students guide. And this gives me some information about importing students. And so these are basic info, the steps of doing it. So you can look at that. But I can also come back and I can look at the student file export, import, I'm sorry, student Excel file import specifications. And this document kind of explains a little bit more about what you can do. It goes through what kind of checks are made. And this is all done through an Excel spreadsheet, and we'll take a look at that in a minute. And this part kind of shows you what's needed for the import. This particular import can be used to update just students or students in enrollments or update grades. And so it's depending on what kind of information you provide in the import, it'll either update the student, the enrollment, or the grades. If I want to update a student, I need to make sure that I have a first name and last name and the UIC, the gender, date of birth, sending district, sending building, and then all of the demographic information is optional, but it'd be good to have that in there. But if I have this amount of information, it's going to try and either create the student or update the student. If I want to do just enrollments, then I need the last name of the student, the UIC, and then I also need the course section code and the subsection. With that, I can do enrollments. And if I want to update grades for enrollments, then I need to have the student, the UIC, and then the course section code, and then I need to have whatever the course grades are. So it's a nice little tool where, depending on, if you can have one file that it will do all three things, or you can start with just the students and then add on the enrollments later on, and then add the grades later on. So you can kind of look at this to see what's needed in there. And if I go back to imports, and then the student Excel headings file, which is the import template, and if I pull that up, you can see that it has there's first name, last name, UIC, all these values in here. And if I, a sec, if I show you an example of one that's already made, it would look something like this, where you've got the names, first name, last name. You've got the UIC in here, the gender, the date of birth, sending district. And again, in this case, it's the number of the sending district. In the sending district, sending building. It's got the phone number, address. And, it doesn't have, where's my scroll bar? There we go. Oops, grabbed the wrong one. Which one is it? Is it this one? No, it's not it. Got too many files open. That is the old one. That one. Did I just close it down? Let me try this again. Oh, I scrolled down. That was my problem. I'm sorry. I think, where'd all my data go? All right. So this is what's going on. So, so it's got all the student information in here, and then it identifies the course section code, and then when the students' begin and end dates are. It doesn't have a subsection in here, and since the subsection is left out, it's always going to default to subsection A, and then it's going to, in some cases, provide course grades. This is just an extra field. And then the course name, and these are just some extra fields in here that aren't necessary. But it has all the information I need in here. If this student here did not exist in the system, it would create them. So it's going to go in and look up their UIC, see if that student's in there. If it's not, it's going to create the student. And it's going to verify the UIC too. It's going to check the first name and last name against the UIC and the sex and the date of birth. It's just going to create the student. Then after that, it's going to go and say, all right, I got a student now. I'm going to go try and find this course. Now, it doesn't create courses, but it will look up this course and make sure that this course exists. And if it does, it will find that course and then enroll that student in that course using this begin and end date in whatever subsection identified. And if none is identified, then it will put it into subsection A. It will also provide a grade for that student if necessary. So if I only wanted to do just enrollments, then again, I could just use the UIC and the last name, the course section showed in the grade, and that would enroll it with just the grade. And since I don't have enough information for the student, it won't touch the student. It'll just do enrollments and grades. And again, all of these are designed to be rerunnable, meaning that if the student already exists, it's going to check to see whether it needs to be updated. And if the enrollment already exists, it will update that too. So you can have, you can take this file and run it with the students and the enrollments. And then later on in the year, or maybe next year, when you find out what the grades are, add the grades in, rerun the file, and it'll update the grades. So, yes. So this is basically an import, and the way you import, and again, we're kind of working on imports right now, so I'll use my test version. You would come in here, you would select the building. One thing I haven't talked about real quick, and I just want to make sure, especially for new people, the idea of a contracted program. Way back when I talked about the hierarchy, you had all of the buildings, but a lot of times you will have a contracted program that's actually happening in a place of business, like an automotive shop or a beauty salon or something like that. Those particular buildings are not currently listed in the student's entity master, so they don't have a number. And so we've solved that problem by giving them the number 00000 and just calling them contracted programs. And that's why a lot of times when you'll see the ability to choose programs, you'll see the operating agency along with the operating agency along with the operating building. So if you have a 000 for contracted programs, you can say, well, this is the contracted program in this particular operating agency. So if you do find yourself with contracted programs, they will be building number 0000. So that's just an aside. So anyways, I would click on the building that I wanted to import into. And in this case, I would choose the file. And I'm going to choose, let's see if I can figure out where it went. This one I just had. And then I import it. It's going to run through and it's going to look at all these different fields, and it's going to check to make sure. See, this over here tells you that it's got enough here to do a student update, a enrollment update, and a grade update. This one just has student and enrollment. So it kind of looks through and figures out, what do I have data to do? It will take all the information and it will run through, and I can do, I can process the enrollment. And in doing that, if there's any errors, they'll throw errors at, let me know what's going on. So this is basically how you import students. So And again, these, we design these these templates to try and work as well as possible with your student management systems. In a lot of cases, if the most you have to do is just rename a column header. But if you have extra columns in there, that's fine. You can leave them in there. And it does a pretty good job to figure it out. There's as long as you've got a date that really looks like a date, that's good. We do have issues sometimes with programs dropping leading zeros, but we try and accommodate for that. There are also issues where things that are texts they're turned into numbers, and numbers are turned into text. And sometimes we have to, that we've got tricks to address that. But for the most part, it works really well. We like to use them because in general, when you're doing manual import and data entry, the opportunity to make mistakes is greater the more times you do it. So if you have an import file, it's a lot easier to do it, and the chances of making mistakes is lower. So we strongly encourage using the imports. So that is the enrollments. And let's see here. We talked about enrollments. We talked about coming up, I think. Come on. Yeah. Manage enrollments, the things to do with enrollments. Entering in grades. Again, the grades are necessary. And there's more information in the documentation about what the grades mean. There are certain grades for dropping out and those kinds of things. So you can look those up. We talked about importing enrollments and how you can find all the templates and supporting documentation on the support.ctis.com. So you can do that. So if there's no questions on that, I'm going to move on to the next topic, which is work-based learning. Now, as Valerie mentioned in the beginning, work-based learning is a new aspect of the data collection that is being required. You can, if you want to get the background of what work-based learning represents and what all these different things are, there's plenty of documentation out there that you can look into. From our standpoint, there are 5 different types of work-based learning events, and they're in this work-based learning continuum, and we represent them with 5 different codes in AEPT for awareness, exploration, preparation, training, and youth apprenticeships. And so we are collecting this information, and we're collecting, as every work-based learning opportunity is to be entered so that we can collect that and recognize that. There's 2 different ways you can enter in work-based learning. You can either do it by course, as I kind of alluded to a minute ago, or you can do it by program. It's important to know that the processes are slightly different. We track it and report it by program. So if you enter it in by course on an enrollment record, it's going to be aggregated together and then applied to a program record. So there's some tricks to that. So there's some documentation on that you can look into. If you're going to do it just purely by program and not try and enter it in by course, then there's a way to enter it in manually, or you can do it by imports by program. And the idea here is that some of the work-based learning events may be associated with a course. And you might have a course that is a work-based learning event, and everybody in that course gets access to that work-based learning event. And so you could make that, when you enroll them and you create the enrollment record, you could just add the work-based learning event on that enrollment record, and then all those students get that work-based learning event. If you track it differently and you track it by program, then you can enter it in that way. So we can take a quick look and see what that looks like. So we'll zip over to here again. So if I go into here and go into Manage Work-Based Learning, again, I'm going to get the opportunity to choose my district. Or actually, let's go back to enrollments. Let's talk about it. If I wanted to do this by enrollments, what I could do is I could come in here and choose my course and then choose my students and then go to update enrolled students. And here I can pick the learning events and suppose that they did a apprenticeship and, or I can't remember what an experience and a T, whatever it is. I've already forgotten what they are. And then I update the WBL codes. It says the update was completed. And so I come down here and I see that they now have a WBL or an ET for WBL. Come back here and you can see they've got ET here. So that allows me to now have these on the enrollment record, and later on I can aggregate these down into a program record. I can also do that in my imports. If I can find my import sheet again, I can add a, doesn't look like this one have it, but if I go back to here, I can, let's see, there, reporting students, how about that one? I do have a work-based learning column header that I can add that is optional, but if I do it, I can now import work-based learning events in my import file. So that is an option too. If I want to look at them by program, I come down here to, let's see, can I do that again, please? Can I do what again, please? There's a question about overwriting. The overwriting has to do with, go back to here, go back to here. On this down here, if there's a way that I can, so in this over here, this kind of defines how the overwrites work, because there is situations where you can have work-based learning events coming in from different directions. You need to figure out whether they want to be overwritten or appended. In this case, if I have multiple, if a student's in multiple different courses that have multiple different events, then when I aggregate them, they will aggregate together. If I, if I change the enrollment record, that'll overwrite. When I do manual imports, I can either overwrite or append it. If I'm doing an import, it's always going to overwrite it. So that if you're doing this stuff and you're picking one or the other, again, we encourage you to either do it by courses or by programs, because the overwrites can be a problem. And if you're doing it by program, then make sure you're choosing the right option to overwrite or append. So, yeah, just if I wanted to import work-based learning by enrollment, I would again choose the students. I'm not showing the right page. I would come to enrollments, pick my course, choose my students, update the enrollments, and then update a work-based learning code in here, and then update that. In this case, it overwrites it. So all these students now have 2 work-based learning events associated with this particular course. If I go into manage work-based learning, it's going to look at work-based learning from a program level. So in this case, I'm going to choose a district, and it will, in this case, it will list all the programs in that district. And then I could choose a program. In this case, I think I was looking at graphics earlier. And if I choose the graphics, it's going to pop open some stuff down here. First, it's going to tell me a little bit of information about the program to make sure I have the right program. And then it's going to give me a way to select my students. And since within a program, if I'm not looking at current enrollments, there's how do you identify your students? I could look at all currently enrolled students, which means anybody that's currently enrolled in any course. I've looked up all the active courses for that program, and maybe this particular program is going to get an event, so I could click on that and get all the students in there. Or maybe I could say all the students in school but not enrolled. So maybe I'm looking for a student that took some courses last year but isn't taking anything this year, or I can just get all of them. The problem is all of them can be a pretty significantly good sized list. So we try and give you a way to break down the list a little bit more. So if I choose the right one here. So if I choose that and show the students, these are all the students that are currently enrolled in that particular class. And then I can choose the ones I want, and I can say that, and then I can add an experience here. I can say they both got an awareness and a training, and I can either overwrite it or append it. In this case, if I overwrite it, you can see that they're added. So like if I grab this guy now and say that he also got a P, a Y, and I append it, it's going to append it and not overwrite it. So this is a way to kind of figure out whether you're appending or overwriting the right events. And so we're just going to, however many events a student participates in, we're just going to have one letter for each. And then, we'll use the application to kind of parse that out and figure out how many of each type every student is doing. Something else I can do is I can say, well, I need to go look all this stuff up. So I can grab all my students. I can choose how I want to group my students. This case, I'm just going to stay with this particular course. And I can export the students by section. And I get a little export down there. And this is going to pop up over here. And I'm going to slide this over here. And it will give me the UIC, the student's name, the PSN, the zip code, the building, and the program name, and what the current work-based learning events are. Now I can go in there and update these and add more. Edit that. Edit that and add an E, a T. And then save that. And then I can use the import function over here to import that same file back into the system and have those work-based learning events be imported that way. So it might be easier to do it that way, to export student lists and then figure out which events they're getting. Keep in mind though, if we go back to this screen here, this screen here, if I do multiple imports, it's always going to overwrite because there's no way for it to know better whether it should overwrite or append. So it's always going to overwrite. So you want to make sure that you have one file that you're using to do all of your work-based learning events in it if you're going to do imports. One other thing about work-based learning, a couple other things. If I'm using the course imports or courses themselves, I have to update the work-based learning events from enrollments. And so if I do this, it's going to pull those enrollments. See if I'm in the right course. I may have grabbed the wrong course. Didn't look like I updated anything. Or maybe those were already there. They always had those in there. But this is the way I can, if I click on this and it'll pull those, if I'm using courses, I have to hit this button to pull them all from the courses into the program record. Now, if I don't intend to, or I don't expect to have any work-based learning events in a particular program in a given year, I have to make sure I click this box right here. It won't let me do it now because I already have events in here. But when we do the validation at the end of the year, we're going to, they want to make sure that you've addressed the work-based learning in every program. So it's going to check to make sure you either have students with work-based learning in the program or that you've checked this box. So it has to be one or the other. And if you haven't done that, then it's going to throw an error on your final validation. I'm not showing screen to attendees. I need to get better at that. Okay, let's. Yep, sorry. How long have I been doing it? Not. All right, so that's better. So I'm trying to think of where I left off. If I can do the imports, I think I showed you how to. I think I showed that where I can. I can export all of the. I can export all of the students in the program, update their work-based learning, and then go back to here and go to import work-based learning. Choose the file. Figure out what I did with it. I believe that's it. And then load that. And again, since if it doesn't have any events in there, it's not going to import anything. So it's going to give you an error there, but it will import these ones. And if I come down here and import the records, it's going to let me know that it's going to overwrite it. So if I'm sure I want to do it, I'm going to import it. Import was successful. And if I go back to my work-based learning, see if I can look that up, choose the course I was looking at. Here's the one I added. So that's now in the system. I added that one in the file. And what I was saying before, if you're doing imports by enrollments or courses, you have to click on this button to pull all of the work-based learning events from the enrollment records down into the program. So need to look into doing that. Again, if you are looking at this and say, oh, geez, I can't remember all that or whatever, we do have some work-based learning documentation here. We have a work-based learning guide, which kind of runs through everything we just talked about. We have a tracking sheet, which is basically the Excel spreadsheet, how to use the Excel spreadsheet, and a short video on how to import them and use work-based learning there. So you can take a look at that. The question was from Stephen, if I, is it basically two-way? If I do it in programs, does it push them back up into enrollments? The answer is no. It only goes one direction. I can push work-based learning events from enrollments into programs, but I can't push them backwards. And it makes sense because how would it know which courses to push them into? So. But we currently, right now, we're working on some additional reports that break down all the events and kind of show you how many of each type of event is in a program. Those are currently being built and finishing up. But right now, basically there's some exports that allow, I can export all students with work-based learning. So this will give me a list of all the students in my district that have work-based learning. So that's, something I can do to look at. So, and I guess I didn't highlight the right thing but it'll give me a list of all the stuff that's going on there. So there's some, and also I can export by selection. So that'll give me a way to find out the ones, what's out there. So right now we just have these exports in terms of reports, but we're working on some other reports, and we hope to have those up very soon. So you can look forward to those. Yeah, it's as was pointed out. Yeah. So, Yeah, I think that one of the comments was that, once you've started getting them in there, you can use these Excel spreadsheets to keep track of them over the year, and then just reuse those to re-import back into the system. All right. Okay. Credentials. And so get back down to normal size. So next thing we want to talk about is credentials. And as we mentioned, the credentials are important for the, I believe it's 5S1 core performance indicator. And we collect these by program and only by program, whereas work-based learning was either by enrollments or by program. Credentials are only by program. And you can do this manually, or you can do this through an import. So let's go back to here. So we can do that through manage credentials. And then manage credentials, again, looks very similar to work-based learning. You start by choosing your district, and it will list all of the programs. You identify which program that you want to be adding credentials to. And I can identify the students by one of these groupings. And I can search by them individually. I can also, again, if this particular program is not expected to have any credentials in it, I need to identify that so that the system knows that you at least looked at it and verified that it's not a mistake that there's no credentials, that it's on purpose. So I click on export. I'm sorry, just click on get students. And I think credentials, I think we're updating at this point. We're adding the new credentials. So I think that this might be a little, that's why there's not populating, but it'll work the same way as work-based learning. You click on this, you'll get your credentials. You'll select the one that you want. And then once you have the credential in there, or then you'll be able to pick from the credential that you want to apply to it. And to know which ones you want to apply to, was been mentioned earlier that you have the Manage Credentials Guide, which will kind of step you through the process, list them. You go through there, you select the students, and then it allows you to pick which kind of credential you want to apply to it. You can select them this way. And you have this link right here, which we are in the process of updating today. Got some staff working on that right now. And that will give you the list of the first tab is all the approved credentials by zip code. And if you looked at it closely, you can see that some credentials apply to more than one zip code. So it's by, it's by zip code and by credential. You can look at all the supplemental credentials. And these are the ones that aren't currently approved, but are, we still want to know about that. So if you are providing these credentials, please provide that. They've also shown some recent additions. So if you want to know what's changed, you have that information in there too. The other thing, if you're going to do credential imports, this is good. You can look at the credential code here. So instead of having to type in an entire name for a credential and worry about getting all that matched wrong, we have a code in here. So if you use this code, it's going to know that this particular credential is what you're going to be importing. Go back to, and this shows you that the file, all you need in the file is a UIC, the PSN, and the credential code and the name. And with that, you can import all the credentials you need. So you can do that by file that way. And you can get a template by just doing an export. If this is populating correctly, then you would see this is all you need. And the only thing you need to have in here is where is it? This is actually the report that shows you all the credentials that are in a particular building. So you have that available to you. Yeah, it's not populating there for some reason. I'm not sure exactly why. I think it has to do with the fact that we're updating it right now. So we have, so that's basically managed credentials. Again, we're working on a final report for that. In the meantime, you can do some exports of the credentials and have that available to you. But that's something you should start working on now if you can. Let's see here. So next, we want to take a quick look at our some of the different reports, and we tried to provide building reports that help you look at make sure that your data is in there correctly and help you identify issues that you may want to address. And you can do that by going into reports, and there's a variety of different reports that you have here. The first one is building reports, and the building reports lists a variety of different reports that you can look at. You have what we call audit reports, which help you look at various classes and buildings and see whether you're missing any information. You can look at this report will show you how many, you do this at the end of the year when you're verifying that all your UICs are correct. This will tell you, I'll give you a list of invalid UICs. This will give you a list of invalid or MSDS records that are off. At the end of the year, you have to have all your grades in. So this will tell you what enrollments are missing grades. This will give you sending billing counts, how many segment Q classes you're using. A lot of these things are going to be updated. The student list will give you a list of basically a course list. If I go into here and I choose this one, hopefully the ones that I worked on will show up. But you can see that you can choose the different types of enrollments. You can choose particular, of course it didn't work, curse of the demo. But I can choose zip codes, individual classes, but it will give me a list of all the students. Yes.
They can't see what you're doing.
Again, I am so sorry.
Yeah.
All right, so go into course reports. I'm getting better at this. All right, so if you go into reports, you got building reports, which will list all of the reports that are available to you. The first set are the audit reports. As I mentioned, the bad UIC, missing grades, all of these. And these are used to help make sure that your data is complete. And they're very good to use at the end of the year to make sure that you're not missing any data. We have program and student reports that give you information about the program. The completer assessment report gives you an idea of students' progress. This is one that has to be redone based on competency. So that's under construction. We have the completer assessment summary, which is similar to that. We look at this one will tell you all your EMC courses and your due enrollments. This will give you accounts of the students in the programs. The program enrollment history is a nice report. See if I can get this one to run. Currently in school. But this one is a nice one. Again, this one is right now designed for Perkins 4 and segments, but we're redesigning one for Perkins 5. They will have competencies in it. Doing a lot of calculations, so it takes a minute. Just chugging along there. Some of these, they have to assemble all the segments for a variety of different students, so it does take a while for these to run. We are working on making sure that the these reports are available. You can select how you want to sort them. That's some of the things that we're adding into it. So as we're having to force to rebuild them based on the Perkins 5 requirements, we're adding in those features. So this one's taking too long, so I'll just move on. Anyways, but there's a variety of different reports in here. A lot of these are listed in the manuals you can look at. You got program and course reports, and instructional design reports are nice to help to look at how your courses line up. There's a secondary taxonomy, which lists all the programs in buildings and districts. So a lot of different reports here that you can take advantage of. We also have a building exports, which allows us to export. I can choose a particular district and select to export that, and it will give me all of the students that are currently enrolled. And this kind of is a stand-in for some of the reports that we're working on, but it will list, and you know, all this stuff is kind of crunched in here, but it's got the PSN, course ID, course section, and then it's got, you know, you'll see all the other information here, what their grades are. This has a lot of information about students and enrollments. And we try and make these as exports so that people can kind of take them and then make their own reports out of them, because everybody likes to do them a little slightly differently. So that's available to you. You've also got funding reports, and these are like the 610 or the 61A1 reports. And those give you what the state aid funding looks like. You've got the follow-up reports, and then when you do follow-up, it will give you the opportunity to run the follow-ups. It would come up. There we go. There's the follow-ups. The 610, 611, we'll talk about more of those in the follow-up training. We already talked about the competency profile. This is a tool that we're working on. Unfortunately, might not be working in training. Looks like that, but basically it gives you. We're going to build some greater facility with this, but it allows you to look at some of the CPI information, some of the enrollment breakouts by state, region, federal cluster, operating agency, operating zip code, all those things. But these are available for you to look at. We're going to expand on these as we move along, but these are available to look at. There's also, since we're transitioning to Perkins 4 and Perkins 5, a lot of our reports are only good for old data, so we're creating archives that they will go into. So those are a lot of the reports that are available to you. So you can take a look at those. If I go back to here, those are the reports. These are some of the computer assessment ones, and these are done by segments, so we have to rebuild those. But looking ahead, we have a lot of things that we got the full year ahead of us. The first thing you're looking at is the fall course collection that due September 23rd. In this case, you're looking at courses and staff, and again, the actual requirement is you have to have a staff and at least every staff in a course per program, so that they can know all the staff and all the programs that are being run this year. You don't have to have students, enrollment, segments, competencies, work-based learning credits. Any of that stuff isn't necessary. So hopefully that minimizes the burden there. The next major deadline that you have to worry about is in May 15th. All of your CTE students need to be enrolled. And the reason we need this is to do a lot of our year-end processing, which includes the funding and the core performance indicator generations. We have to get additional data from additional state systems like MME and the GAD file and some of these other things. And to do that, we need to have a list of students early on that we can start going and getting a match to those data files from. So in order to make sure that we get our data in time to join and complete our reports in a timely manner, we need to have all the students in CTE enrolled by May 15th. Again, I don't need grades, I don't need segments, competencies, work-based learning, any of all that stuff. The question is what about the EMC and dual enrollment extraction? That has actually been moved into the final report, so that no longer has its own extraction time. The that process has been moved into the final report. So you need to make sure all your EMC and dual enrollments are in place by the final enrollment, which is in June. So in the final enrollment collection, which is due June 16th, everything is due. So you need to have all your courses in there right. They all need to be structured right and have all the right data in them. You have to have your students and your enrollments in them. All your WBL has to be in there. Your first pass credentials has to be in there. You will still continue to have till the end of August to update them, but you have to have your first pass of credentials in there. So this is kind of what you're looking forward to in terms of enrollment for in terms of due dates. So we got that. This is just a slide that says that it's, we do this to collect we have to collect all the enrollment information. And again, we do it to manage funding, to manage the CPIs. We also use it to create reports that we turn around and try and make available to you that help you examine your own programs and verify that you're doing, they're operating it most efficiently. In terms of support, there is lots and lots of support. As Valerie mentioned, we are doing everything we can to make it easy for your tasks and provide you with the support you need. I've spent a lot of time showing you all of the stuff that's available in the knowledge base on support.cetis.com. So you can always look there for information. We try and keep that updated as much as possible. Everything's changing very quickly. So, we try and keep that updated as much as possible, but it is definitely a moving target. If you have policy questions, and these are like, where do I find info? What what constitutes a segment? How do I know which competencies to use? Those are questions you need to direct towards OCTE. And that list of, this list right here is the list that you want to hit up for enrollment questions. It's Valerie and Joan are the ones that you really want to talk to, but I'm sure any one of these would happy to answer your questions. But you want to direct all policy questions towards OCTE. If you have technical questions like my import bombed, or why won't this import work, or why do I keep getting these errors, or I need to get this UIC flipped, or something along those lines, or help me understand this error message or something, you can call the technical support desk or email CTEIS at pddtechnology.com. We have a toll-free number and we have a regular number. And as anybody who's been around a while know that John Hazen's at the other end of that, and he is one of the more helpful people you'll ever run into. So, he's there to try and do whatever he can to help you out. So take full advantage of him. He's there 8 to 5 days a week. So take advantage and see what's going on there. Someone noticed that there's something with CTEIS. I received an email, there's something going on with the actual CTEIS site too. It's my first thing I'm going to do as soon as I'm done here is figure out what's going on with CTEIS. Not quite sure what's going on there, but we'll get it figured out right quickly. So, I'll throw out to any other questions. Like I said, I will see what's going on with CTEIS, the actual application itself. I'm not sure what's happening with that, but we'll figure it out and we'll have that back up and running shortly. All right. Well, if no one has, it doesn't look like we've answered all the questions, we will try and go through and tabulate all of these questions, and then we will send out a response towards the end of when we're all done with the trainings, and have all these questions answered so that people can go back and look through them. Again, take advantage of all the support that you have around you. It's going to be a good year. A lot of new things to do, but hopefully that they're all going to be quick and easy. And we'll figure it all out. Also, if you wouldn't mind, you can take a training evaluation. I think this link works. Once you click the meeting, it's supposed to prompt you with an option to take an evaluation. If not, you can find it at support.ctis.com, and we might email you links afterwards too. Links to this webinar, as I said, we've recorded this and we're going to put this up online on the knowledge base along with this PowerPoint, and we will try and have that up as soon as we can. Hopefully we'll have the PowerPoint up today, and the video takes a little bit of processing, but we'll try and get that up shortly. So at this point, I will leave it open to any questions. If not, thank you all so much for your time and for all your hard work. And I'm happy 2021-22.